Super Bowl team and now these haters salty.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to IE Sports Radio. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, and your girl Bex may or may not be joining us tonight. We shall see. We are the East Coast Red and Gold. What's going on, everybody?
Doing good.
All right.
Another day in the world of red and golddom.
Yes.
Still recovering from Sunday's game, and not so much the game itself, but like the actual fallout from it. I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yep,
for sure.
Goodness. Other than that, everything's great. Good to see you guys.
Yes,
indeed.
Great to see you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us, the East Coast Red and Gold, on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Also, a quick reminder, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League Lake Champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single affiliate of the San Diego Padres. Shout out Don Orsillo again. New England misses you. Truly, you'd make that Nesnap worth it. The other guy definitely doesn't. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, no MSG, which I usually ask for some in my Chinese food, but I guess in this case it's good not to have it. So that's good. If you don't want that, that's fine. No sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and high in protein, which is a good thing as well. Some of the best jersey you can get your paws on, or hands, or claws, or whatever you're using. I want to make sure I'm inclusive. You can win 4 tickets to see the Storm or 4 bags of jerky as well, all by going to planetjerky.net. Place that order, follow Planet Jerky on Instagram, and message them that you bought your jerky from hearing this ad. Then you're entered in the raffle that ends on Tuesday, August 1st. I don't think you can do that anymore, can you?
Nope.
So
unless you got a time machine.
So don't do that, but make sure you still buy your jerky anyways, so that they're like, wow, we really should have extended that. We should have done that till September. So anyways, that's a good copy that we've run through. So again, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. IE Sports Radio, iesportsradio.com, East Coast Red and Gold. Sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog. You can also find us on iTunes, as just mentioned. You can listen right there, which gives you all of the audio that you can possibly use. So thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports, and enjoy your brisket jerky.
All right. Thank you very much. So let's bring on our special guest from 49ers Web Zone and 49ersCamelot of YouTube. We have Marc Adams.
Marc, what's up, everybody?
Hey,
thanks
Marc.
for having me. I appreciate
thanks
it.
for coming on.
Yeah, I've never been on with y'all before, but this sounds fun, especially talking beef jerky.
I mean, beef jerky is the best.
Truly. Way to start the show, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely sounds good.
Yeah, now I'm hungry, though.
So before we get to Roger Craig, I always like doing this with new guests. I like hearing how they became a 49ers fan. So talk a little bit about how you became a fan. Talk a little bit about your YouTube channel. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's how I became a fan is really strange and probably different than most of the 49ers fans. I was a kid living in Houston, Texas. And this was during the Love Ya Blue era for the Houston Oilers. And so, just starting to get involved in sports. And so I became an Astros fan, became an Oilers fan. And so then my family, a couple of years later, moved away from Houston. And the Oilers traded away my favorite player, Earl Campbell. And then they became a terrible team. So I decided, you know what, whoever wins. Yeah. And then they left. But I was in like the 5th grade, and I decided whoever wins this next Super Bowl is my new team. And fortunately, the 49ers won that Super Bowl in 1981, January of 82. And so when I was doing this Roger Craig stuff, one of the people that I interviewed for the story that I wrote was George Seifert. And he was the defensive backs coach on that first Super Bowl team. And and he asked me the same question: how did you become a fan? And so I told him the story, and I said, thank you for beating the Bengals. would have hated to grow up a Bengals fan. And he laughed. But yeah, that's how it got started. And so then just a couple of years ago, I started writing for 49ers Web Zone. I had a lot of people saying, "Hey, you need to do a podcast," and I was like, "No way, that is way too much work." I'm a guest on shows. I like to go on, talk, and then leave and not have to do anything else. And so after a while, I just actually about a year, I was saying no, and then I finally did it. And so now I'm on YouTube at 49ers Camelot, and I try to do things a little different. I know most of the shows come on and they just talk. I try to do more interview stuff. I do some solo stuff where it's just me, but I don't like doing that. I like to bring on guests and basically make them the star of the show and interview them. And because it's a little different than what everybody else is doing. And that's one of the reasons why it took me so long, because there's so many great 49ers content creators that I was like, what am I going to bring to the table that's not already being done? So that's why I just kind of took my time and finally decided, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it a little bit different. It's not terribly different, but just different enough that I don't feel like I'm just trying to copy everybody else.
Yeah, that's definitely what we aim for. We try to be different. It's good.
Yeah,
to
well,
be different.
yeah. When you talk beef jerky, that's different.
Hey,
Hey,
that's upper echelon too. Not
Right.
just regular jerky.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no
Yeah.
MSG with it.
Brisket.
Like, yeah.
No MSG. So yeah, it's good for you.
Exactly.
Dang.
you never know what you're going to hear on the show either. So
No.
It's true. It's very true.
No, that's the other whole thing about that.
So now you're part of the podcast, the Hall of Fame Case for Roger Craig. Talk a little bit about that. And now you have the floor to make your case for Roger Craig to be in the Hall of Fame. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, about 2 years ago today, or around this time, I heard Larry Krueger on KNBR making his case for Roger Craig, and he was throwing out some numbers that just blew me away and was making me go, I can't believe that Roger's not in the Hall of Fame. And there were things that I didn't know. So I decided I wanted to write a story on it. So I reached out to Larry and said, "Hey, how can I get a copy of these numbers, because I want to write a story on this." And he said, "Let me call you." So he called me and he said, "Look, if we're going to really make a difference and have a chance to help get Roger Craig in the Hall of Fame, you've got to write a story, and then you need to get Joe Montana and Steve Young and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott. You need to get these guys on because they're going to carry a lot of weight." And I said, "Okay, well, how do I get them on?" And he goes, "I have no idea." and then he said, "You're probably not going to be able to get them." And so I just, by chance, I met somebody who used to work for the 49ers years ago during the Dynasty era. And so I reached out to him, told him what I was doing, and asked, "Hey, can you help me reach some of these guys?" And he said, "Yeah, who do you want?" So I started listing them, and he gave me contact information. And to their credit, I mean, they're not going to come on to my show. If I reach out to Joe Montana and say, "Hey, I have this podcast, would you come on?" He's probably not going to, because he gets so many calls like that.
Requests, yeah.
And but when I was able to say, "Look, I'm doing this for Roger Craig," they all were like, "Yeah, absolutely." So for the story, we had that, and so then in 2022, he didn't get in. So this year we decided, let's do a 4-part podcast series, get some of those guys back, and the story from last year and the podcast series from this year. All of them were sent to the Hall of Fame voters, the senior voters. And so they all have a copy of it. Whether or not they watch, I don't know. I had some of them reply to my email and thank me for it and say that they were going to watch. And some even wrote back and had 2 of them say, "Hey, this is great, but we expect his teammates to have his back. How about you get us some guys who played against him?" And so we're actually working on that right now. We have some former 49ers that are reaching out to people like Mike Singletary and different ones like that Some people from Eddie DeBartolo's office are doing it. So they're and Matt Mayoko, they're all kind of working together. And so they actually have a list of former players who played against Roger Craig that this week sometime are supposed to be hopping on a Zoom call and giving their endorsements for Roger so that can go to the voters. So I think that's going to carry a lot of weight.
That's excellent. I was going to ask you that. Are you reaching out to opponents because they can tell you firsthand what a problem he was?
Yeah. When I wrote the story last year, I followed it up with one where we got a statement from Harry Carson, and I got to talk to Mike Singletary to get a statement from him. And Mike Singletary told me, he said, Walter Payton, Roger Craig. He said, I put him right up there. And then he stopped and he goes, you know what? Actually, I put Roger Craig higher than Walter. And I love Walter.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was an incredible endorsement. So I hope that they're able to get they're going to have a better chance, because I reached out to Singletary for this podcast series, and he didn't write me back. So I'm not sure why, but maybe he's just tired of me. But I hope that the DeBartolo, I hope that, or Ronnie Lott, one of those guys are reaching out to him.
Yeah, get to him.
Hopefully they'll get him, because Mike Singletary carries a lot of influence.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about a Hall of Famer, one of the
Absolutely.
best middle linebackers in the game that played in the era.
Greats. Yep.
Exactly. He'll tell you firsthand exactly how it was and who the opponent was and how difficult they were to face on a weekly basis. So
yeah. But the case is great. And I mean, like, everybody knows the 1,000,000. So Ronnie Lott said in the podcast that John Madden told him, whenever you're the first to do something, that's Hall of Fame right there. And this is coming from Ronnie Lott and then from John Madden, of course, two Hall of Famers. And I think that's a great point, because it's only happened twice since then, Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey. And maybe McCaffrey does it again this year. And then that'd be crazy, because then he'd be the only one to do it twice.
Yeah.
But crazy that it's only happened twice since then. But there was another year in the 80s where Roger Craig had over 2,000 all-purpose yards. Which is impressive. So Steve Young said this. He said that you look at how NFL running backs are evolving right now, that the I back is being phased out. I mean, you've got guys like Derrick Henry, but they're on their way out. And he said that the running back position is becoming more like the McCaffrey type. And he said that started with Roger Craig. And so when you change the sport, when you change a position, his words were, the Hall of Fame, the NFL needs to pay that off and induct Roger Craig, because he changed the sport. Matt Mayoko told me that he interviewed Bill Walsh years ago, and Walsh said that he wasn't able to fully use his offense until he had Roger Craig. That to me, I was blown away by that statement, that Bill Walsh couldn't fully use his offense until he had Roger Craig. The only player in NFL history to make the Pro Bowl as a fullback and as a running back. Here's the thing. He has, y'all know who John Stallworth is. Great Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver from the 70s. He's in the Hall of Fame. Roger Craig has more receptions and more receiving yards than John Stallworth. If Roger Craig was a receiver, he'd be in. But because he's a running back, he's judged on that running back room. And so, like, what I had one of the Hall of Fame voters tell me that for years the magic number was 10,000 yards. You had to rush for 10,000 yards or you wouldn't make it into the Hall of Fame. And Roger's just under that. So, but he has more all-purpose yards than Earl Campbell. He has what did I wrote? He has more rushing yards than Larry Zonka and Gale Sayers, who are both in the Hall of Fame. So I guess I don't see why he's not in. I mean, some people will say stuff like it was the fumble, but
Mhm.
come on, you're gonna hold one play against the
Exactly.
guy. You're not gonna make the Hall of Fame on one play, so why would you be kept out of the Hall of Fame? I had a guy telling me that in fact, he said this was just last week. He said, we'll never forgive him for that. And I said, first off, don't lump the rest of us in with you not forgiving. And second, I hope you never make mistakes on your job because we all do. And it was crushing.
That one wasn't even so much a mistake as it was the absolute
It was a great
perfect play by the Giants. Like, if you haven't gone back and watched that, for anyone out there, everybody in this room has probably seen it numerous times and probably sees it in their sleep, usually after taking NyQuil and when not feeling well. The crown of the helmet hits the ball.
Right on the ball.
The ball goes in the flipping air. And where does it come down? Into the hands of friggin' Lawrence Taylor. Not the hands of anyone else. The direct hands of Lawrence Taylor.
Yep.
Like, pop, here you go. There was nothing anyone could do about that.
Yep.
Nothing. The best thing that could have been done about that was maybe call a bootleg with Steve Young, considering he was in the game at that point. That might have been the way to go, but we can't go back and change that. And it's really tough to hold that against Roger Craig. Kind of reminds me of the way that Bill Buckner era got held against him for the longest time, right? Just that same deal. Even though when you look back on it, it's like, wow, dude was pretty good. He did a lot of good things, right? Like same ball of wax, man. And then they ran him out of town after, like, he never even got a chance to make tone for it. Like, boop, see you later.
Well, in Carmen Policy, when we talked about that fumble, he said, you don't have to just mention the fumble. What happened after that? There was that play where Mark Bavaro carried like 3 49ers down the field. I mean, so the Giants offense moved the ball, got into field goal position, and then Matt Barr hits this long field goal and he barely made it. And so, Roger fumbled, but it was a great defensive play. The defense of the 49ers then let them down. And so, it's the old adage, you win as a team, you lose as a team. And that's how it happens.
Here's the stupidity for the fumble for me. And maybe you can mention this to others. They hold that against them and they say it prevented them from having a three-peat. In order to have a three-peat, that means you have already repeated. The man helped win 2 Super Bowls back to back.
Yeah.
And many people forget in Super Bowl 23, of course, Jerry Rice gets all the accolades. He was the MVP. Joe Montana had an incredible game. He could have easily been MVP. The third best player on the field that day was Roger Craig.
Yeah.
71 yards rushing, over 100 yards receiving. I believe it's like 172 all-purpose yards.
Correct.
He
was huge on that final drive, too.
Exactly. On that final drive, it was him and Jerry.
Yep.
Until John at the end.
Moving the chains,
Exactly.
So and you know what? He fumbled in that game, but nobody remembers that because they won.
I was just about to say that, but I was like, I didn't want to be the guy that mentioned every fumble, so I just shut my mouth.
And the point to that is that stuff like that happens. I mean, go back to the NFC Championship where Dwight Clark makes the catch. How many interceptions did Joe Montana throw in that game? And
6
so
turnovers in that game.
They were terrible. Now they were great at the right spot, but that stuff happens, especially when you play big games against great teams. The Giants defense was no joke. No. And so for them to force a turnover was not uncommon. Those guys got after it. So
people overlook the fact that they knocked Joe Montana out of the game.
Yeah.
Before that fumble.
Correct.
That's how ferocious that defense was, right?
So even if they had moved on, Steve Young would have had to start the Super Bowl. Because Montana had a broken finger. That was it. There was no coming back from that.
That three-peat was not guaranteed.
Right. So he wasn't Steve Young.
Wasn't going to play. Exactly. He was not Steve Young yet
at that point. So I think that they probably would have won, but that Buffalo Bills team was really, really good. So no guarantees.
No pressure, Steve Young. Hey,
I know, right?
You're gonna
Get
finish
out
this
there
NFC title game off, and then you're gonna go win the Super Bowl.
repeat for us.
The other, of course, major what if I had today was what if they had decided that when Montana was healthy enough to come back in '92, they just let him come back, and then they traded Young before the '93 season. They probably could have traded Young for the #1 pick to New England, and then they could have drafted Drew Bledsoe to sit behind Joe Montana for 2 years. Wouldn't that have been a weird world?
I wrote an article in the off season called, it was something like 10 worst moments in 49ers history or something like that. And so that 92 NFC Championship game was one of them. And I addressed that the Cowboys players after the game were saying, we were just hoping they didn't put Joe in. But I remember at that time thinking Steve Young was running for his life in that game because they were really getting after him.
They're coming after him, yeah.
If Joe was in the game, would it have – I don't know that maybe the Cowboys' defense would have played differently. I mean, Charles Haley hated Steve Young, so he was really coming after him. But he loved Joe, so maybe he wouldn't have – I don't know. It's hard to say.
Just one of those deals that you look at that one, and of course, there's all sorts of them. But if they instead of the Plan B free agency when Lott and Craig left and went to the Raiders, which started a ridiculous scenario of 49ers going to the Raiders that just continues to this day and is utterly disgusting. Like it hurts actually.
Yeah.
When I interviewed Carmen Policy for the podcast, once I stopped recording, I asked him, "Hey, about that thing where you traded Charles Haley to the Cowboys," and he's like, "Oh yeah." But he said, "Look, Seifert had enough," and he was like, "Charles has got to go," But he said that was the worst decision that we made.
Oh yeah, we all know it.
Yep, cost them probably 2, maybe 3 Super Bowls
easily.
Yeah,
it directly handed Dallas an additional 3 Super Bowls, right?
Yep.
I mean, that team was so loaded they carried Barry Switzer to a Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
I just want everyone to sit down and think about that for a second, and then reevaluate some of your life choices. Well, you make $1.5 million on YouTube, right? Like those are the things that I want you guys to think about.
Yep. I just was glad that Jerry and Jimmy didn't get along and they parted ways because that 94 team for the 49ers was real good. But man, if Jimmy Johnson was still there, I don't know. That would have been
Jimmy Johnson would not have bumped into the official and created a 15-yard personal foul penalty. I think that's the first time I ever saw that in a football game.
Yeah, Switzer's a little bit of a hothead for sure.
Yeah. He lost his marbles in that one. That was a crazy one. That was wild.
Yeah.
So who was your favorite to talk to?
When I did the story, obviously Joe Montana. He was my favorite player. After the Oilers traded away Earl Campbell, I loved Joe Montana. I loved Marcus Allen, who played for the Raiders. Loved him. He was my favorite non-49er player in the 80s. Loved Steve Young. Loved Jerry Rice. But Joe was my favorite. And so when he called me, it was on a number that was like unavailable or something like that. And so I usually don't answer those, but I thought, because he had emailed me days before and said that he was going to call me.
Okay.
And then he never did. So I thought, maybe I should answer this. And he goes, "Hey, Mark, it's Joe." And I recognized his voice, because I grew up listening to him. And so I was very professional. I was like, "Hey, Joe, how's it going?" And I was like, I held it together. And when I was finished, I texted my wife, "I just got off the phone with Joe freaking Montana." And so that was my favorite one. Talking to Mike Singletary was super cool. That guy I don't know how his 49ers teams weren't good, because he just talking to him on the phone made me want to run through a wall, because he's just so inspiring. But during the podcast, Steve Young's just so deep. I mean, he says stuff that just has so much substance.
Yeah.
Talking to Ronnie Lott was really cool, because you could hear, I asked him, what do you think it would mean to Roger Craig to make it into the Hall of Fame? And he got emotional. Like, he was like, wow. And, and he's like, that takes me back to when we were roommates, when he was a rookie. And, and he's telling stories. And so they all were great. Carmen Policy he might not be the one that most people would think, but because I talked to him for the story as well. And both times when we were finished, he kept me on the phone telling me stories. Like, he told me this story about when he was involved with the interview process of Bill Walsh, and how he was Eddie DeBartolo's personal attorney, and he wrote up the contract for Bill Walsh's first contract. So he's telling me these stories, and it's really so cool. And so I asked him, because there was this rumor that in the early 80s that Bill Walsh wanted to trade Joe Montana for John Elway. And so I asked him, was there any truth to that? And he confirmed that was true. And
Wow.
Eddie talked him out of it, but Bill Walsh wanted to trade Montana. And this was after the 84 Super Bowl. So I think Joe had already won too.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it made sense, because I remember Bill Walsh in the 80s saying if John Elway played in the West Coast offense, he'd be the greatest quarterback of all time. So Walsh really, really liked Elway. And I did too. I thought Elway was great. But I
think about that. A
strong
strong arm mobile quarterback in the West Coast offense.
Well, he ended up pivoting, and he pivoted from that idea to end up getting Steve Young a couple years later.
Exactly.
Because Steve Young was the guy that he was like, oh, if there was another guy that could be him, right? Like,
strong arm mobile quarterback.
That idea was definitely kicked around. And then, in 84, you had Matt Cavanaugh as a backup. And then I think in 85, you had Cavanaugh as a backup in a while. But then in 86, you had Kemp. Like, he was good for a couple of games. Then he got hurt. You had Morosky. Like, there was a large drop off. And if there's one thing that this current era, can relate to, is a large drop off from like the injury quarterback to the next, right? And we've seen it more often than not. We've lived it so many times.
Yep.
So it was. Walsh was always forward thinking, and like once he got to 6 or 7 years, like he figured he needed to find the next guy, and he was going to look for the next guy, which in that case, was Young. But
it just
John Elway blazed that trail for him. Yeah,
it just sounds like unfathomable that they would consider trading Joe. I mean, that I understand you have a vision for a guy who can be running to his right and flip it back over his left, and it goes 60 yards in the air. I mean, because I remember seeing Elway do something like that.
Yeah.
But it just, I mean, I don't know, trading Joe, that's like cheating on your spouse, I mean.
Right, yeah.
But
hey, Mark, have you spoken to Roger at all during this process?
Yeah, when I wrote the story, when it went out, I got his contact info, and I texted him a copy of the story, and he was great. He replied, and you just see how special he is. He's very personable. And I've heard stories like this, of people that met him in the airport, and instead of just signing an autograph and saying, "Hey, see ya," that he would stop and ask people, "So, what's your name?" And like ask them questions about them that just tells you the kind of person he is. And he was doing that kind of stuff with me. I wanted to get him on for the podcast. He declined. I think that I think that last year when he didn't get in, I think that he maybe took that hard. from what I understand. So there are times that I've texted him over the last year and he responds, and sometimes he doesn't. And so there was a particular game, maybe I don't remember if it was a Monday night game or when it was the last season, that I was watching on TV, and it showed that Roger was there at Levi's there for the game. And it just happened to be a game that McCaffrey went off. And so I texted Roger and said something like that. McCaffrey kid reminds me of number 33 running around there. And he wrote back, "Oh, thank you, man." And so he's so personable, but it's I hope that we get really good news next week. Because I think that at that point he'll probably be happy to go on some shows, but so far he hasn't been.
Yeah.
I hope we get that good news.
Oh, yeah.
Another person that should be in there too. Kelly Young says get Seifert in there also.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing, the hard part with that is that when he left the 49ers and went to Carolina, they were horrible.
Yeah.
That really hurts him. And then I don't know if you watched the Joe Montana documentary that was on Peacock.
Yeah.
I think it was back during 2001 or something like that. They evidently Seifert, in those times where Montana was coming back from the injury, Seifert did not want Joe to get in the game.
Yeah,
that
he didn't
last
want him
game,
around. Yeah,
he didn't want him throwing touchdown passes because he didn't want a quarterback controversy. He'd already decided we're sticking with Steve. We're moving on from Joe. And I think that Joe really took issue with that because that series, that Montana series, wasn't very favorable to Seifert. So I don't know how the former 49ers players view him. So that might be a hard one, but I think he should be in because the guy, all he did was win. He had a really tough job, take over from Bill Walsh, and keep it moving, and he won 2 more Super Bowls.
Exactly.
Probably should have won more, but he also was the one who
that damn trade.
Yeah, exactly. So there were things that I'm sure voters would use against him.
So can you stay to talk a little bit of Niners current team?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of time here.
All right, cool. Your thoughts on the quarterbacks?
I'm very much in the Trey Lance camp. Now, I'm very pro whoever it is. So I like Brock Purdy. My concern with Purdy is not so much his injury. It's that what he did last year, as amazing as it was still a small sample size. And NFL history is littered with quarterbacks that look great for a small period of time and then disappeared. And so while I hope that he's the next great thing, and Kyle said he's the real deal, I hope that he is. But that's my only concern, especially when you see that, Trey wasn't great Sunday night. He made some decisions that weren't good, but you saw some glimpses of when he makes a decision and lets that ball go. He threw some pretty balls. And so I just think that Trey Lance has had horrible luck, and that if it was a situation that was different, I think that the 49ers, just their situation, I think that the plan was we're going to sit him in 2021 behind Jimmy. 2022, he's going to be the guy. We'll take whatever lumps come our way, and hopefully by the end of the 2022 season, he'll be really good. But then he got hurt, and then the next thing you know, Brock's doing what Brock did. So I just think they're in a tough spot. But if Kyle or John Lynch were to call me, and they never will because they don't have a clue who I am, if they were to call and say, "Do you think we should trade Trey?" I'm going to say no. maybe Brock's the best quarterback now, but in a few years it might be Trey. So I don't know why they can't keep him. Some people think, hey, trade him so he has a chance to go be great. But if they trade him and he goes and he's great, I don't know if they survive that unless Brock Purdy is still great. But if Brock crashes and Trey is great for somebody else, Kyle and John aren't going to be around long.
Agreed. We've had those same sentiments on this show. We've talked about it too much, but we always say both two young quarterbacks that are still developing, still growing. From both of them, we saw flashes of good and flashes of bad.
Yeah.
We still don't know what we have yet. It's still too early to make any type of call, and they just need time, and we need to be patient and give them time.
Yeah, I agree. And so far I'm not in the Sam Darnold camp. I don't have anything against him. I just don't know that he's going to be what they want. And Brandon Allen, I don't. I grew up in Arkansas, so I'm a Razorbacks fan, and so I like Brandon Allen, but I don't think he's the answer. But hey, if Sam Darnold is the guy that they ended up going with, if Brock isn't what they hope or he gets hurt and Sam Darnold's it, I'm going to be rooting for him as hard as I root for anybody. So because I just want to win. I don't care if Barney the purple dinosaur, I don't care if he's the quarterback. I just want to win. I don't know why that popped in my head, but
I'm going to be in the stands yelling, Barney, Barney, Barney.
We should have done that in Philly last year.
Yeah, right. So you're now everybody, it's preseason, just like it's practice. Doesn't necessarily define what's going to happen in the regular season. But your thoughts on the preseason game against the Raiders?
I thought the offensive line was atrocious. I think I saw that Warren Sharp put out a thing that showed that Trey Lance was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks, which is bad. There were a couple of them, Leroy Watson, Ilm Manning. Those guys were pretty decent. There was another one, Keith Ishmael, 0 pressures on 29 pass block snaps. So Watson, Manning, and Ishmael, they did good, but the others were horrible. Nick Zakel gave up 4 quarterback pressures. Jalen Moore was the leader in the clubhouse for swing tackle. He gave up 3 quarterback pressures. If Trent Williams or Colton McKivitz goes down and Jalen Moore has to start, I'm going to be nervous. So
indeed.
That I think that, you go back to the team that Jim Harbaugh built, and not really Trent Baalke, even though he drafted the 2, gosh, I've forgotten the names, the 2 that in 2010 that, gosh dog it, Anthony Davis and Mike Iupati.
Oh yeah.
But that was that draft room, that draft board was set before Trent Baalke took over. And so while he's the one that made those decisions, I don't give him credit for it. I give Scott McCloughan credit for those. But that's what they did. And McCloughan was all about that, with Staley. And then good grief, I can't even remember those guys' name. Who was the one that played right guard for Harbaugh's teams?
Alex Boone?
Yeah, Alex Boone.
Alex
so
Boone, that's right. Go Jets.
That offensive line was the core of those Harbaugh teams. And I feel like that's what Shanahan's teams have been missing, is a great offensive line. Yeah, he's got Trent Williams, is all world, but man, imagine what he could do if he had that kind of talent. But yeah, so I didn't like that. I felt like the defense didn't play very well, but liked some of what I saw. Some of those young receivers, like Ronnie Brown, liked what saw from him, except for
Ronnie Bell.
when yeah. What did I say? Ronnie Brown. Yeah, Ronnie Bell.
Did he start running Wildcat? Like,
yeah.
I'm blaming you.
Yeah, I know.
Right. The old Auburn guy. Yeah.
Yep.
Ronnie Bell. Until he let that pass go through his hands
When he dropped it, yeah.
Yeah, he's a rookie. So, but I think that Tay Martin, I really liked what I saw from him. He has got great, like body control. He just looks like an NFL receiver, and so I really liked what I saw from there. And Isaiah Winstead, he looked good. So those young receivers that were out there, I thought that they did a good job.
How about the Niners said, silver lining of the Sunday game, Il Manning allowed zero pressures, keeping an eye on him. He could be a solid backup, can play tackle, guard, and center. Yep. Another guy on defense that I was impressed with, Jair Brown.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember him flashing that down at the goal line on that one play where he saved a touchdown. Yeah. I didn't see him flash a whole lot, but I did. There were others who were breaking the game down more that were saying that he looked really good. But I only remembered him on that one play. What all did you see from him?
Just coverage and being where he needed to be. That's kind of what I was looking for. And another one would be D Winters going sideline to sideline, stuff in the run. The young guys getting their shot and, making a case for, who knows, maybe possibly even starting at some point,
Right.
It's a long season.
Yeah.
The big thing was they were flying around to the ball. They saw it and attacked it. Nobody made a big splash play, something like that goal line stand, and D Winters had a big stop on a run play, but they were just aggressive and flying to the ball and focusing on their keys. So it was very positive to see them doing that, being their first action period in the NFL.
Yeah, Jalen Graham looked good. I heard Matt Barrows say that they were playing him during training camp. They were playing him a lot at middle linebacker, which Barrows said they never do that with rookies, just because they can't catch on that quickly. Yeah. And but they are with Jalen Graham, and so that's pretty impressive. And he looked good. I saw somebody talking about Jameson. He looked really smooth, returning the ball. Ambry Thomas played well too.
Yeah, welcome back to the Bigs, Ambry Thomas. Like, I don't know what he's been up to, but good for him to find out. Like, it looked like and seemed like Isaiah, before the game, everybody was talking about what a great job Isaiah Oliver was doing at the nickelback slot. But boy, it looked like Ambry Thomas made up some ground, or maybe even went ahead a little bit based on what I saw.
I thought that Isaiah Oliver was not good. He got beat multiple times by a rookie quarterback playing in his very first game, and he was the presumed starter at nickel corner. Kyle Shanahan said this week, no, there's a competition there, and today there were others. Diamador Lenore played in the slot today, and maybe Deshaun Jameson played in the slot today. I heard that somebody else did.
They mentioned AJ Parker as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I don't know. I did think it was strange that the starting defense is not playing, but Oliver's out there. Right. And then so maybe they went into that game not sure, but I think they came out of that game for sure not sure.
Yeah.
I think, the two guys that I was high on are not doing so great, and that's Cameron Latou and Isaiah Oliver. So I'm just going to stop being high on people and just let it all play out.
Yeah, please don't be high on Brock Purdy. I wrote for in because I always do a response to the game, like an observations thing.
Mhm.
And on Cameron Latu, I wrote that his first NFL game was forgettable. His first penalty, first catch, first turnover, and which was sad because by all accounts he's been dropping everything they throw at him in training camp. And then he comes out and catches the ball and then fumbles
it.
So, yeah, but I actually, after the draft, felt like I was higher on Braden Willis than Latu. Now, Latu, I think he's a project maybe, where Braden Willis, I think maybe he's ready to play now. So I hope that they both develop the way they need to.
So who do you think, as far as like tight ends, who do you think we keep and who do we let go?
That's a good question. I find it hard to see Ross Dwelly making it through yet again, because I really don't think that they're going to cut Latu. If he was a 7th round draft pick or a 6th rounder, I don't know that he'd make the team. But because he was a 3rd rounder, I think that they're going to have a hard time cutting him loose. I think Braden Willis is a keeper, so I think that he's going to make the team. So, yeah, and then there was the oh gosh, what was his name? The tight end. He made multiple catches on Sunday.
Fagamali.
Yeah. He came out of nowhere to me. I was like, what in the world? He I was not expecting him to really do anything, and then he had multiple catches. Charlie Warner is a blocker. So I think if somebody else can show that they can be that blocker that Charlie Warner is, then maybe Charlie Warner won't make it. But I don't know. It's hard. That's going to be a tough race there.
Still don't forgive Charlie Warner for the Atlanta game last year. That drop in the Atlanta game was brutal.
Hit him right in the hands.
Yeah.
Right in the hands. Boing.
Yeah, it's like some of those. I remember Delaney Walker dropping some balls that cost the 49ers a game in 2012 against the Rams. Oh yeah, Vance McDonald had that really big drop. Oh. Yeah, that was a death blow there, but it happens.
How about that Niner says, I bet Conley and Bell wide receiver 5 and 6. Bell is impressing and Conley is an elite run blocker, still big, fast, and athletic.
Yeah, so if he's 5 or 6, then so you've got Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, you've got Danny Gray. Who else might they have? Bell and Conley. Yeah, it could be. I mean, maybe
Conley could be wide receiver 4 right now with Ray out. Frankly,
yeah, I forgot about Ray. Yeah. But Kyle said today that he's hoping that Ray is back for week 1.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
That's what he said, that he thinks that he's not going to be out as long, and they're hoping for week 1. So yeah, I totally forgot about him. And so it's going to be hard because what are they going to keep? 6? That's normally what they keep, I think.
Sounds about right. Depends on how much they want to load up on special teams, right? Like who's can Deshaun Jameson save them a roster spot, right? Like that's a legitimate question. Like can he do punt returner, kick returner, nickel, right? And stay healthy and do it all year long. Like, because if he can, well, that saves your roster spot, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
2 more for me. When does Nick Bosa sign his contract, and what's your record prediction for this year?
Gosh, I never do record predictions. I think that they'll win. Gosh, it's so hard to know because I might pick the Steelers to win week 1. I know that because I have to make votes for I have to make picks for 49ers Web Zone, And the Steelers win opening day every year. Like they're always ready opening day.
Yeah, they're 15-1.
Yeah, and so I don't know what to expect from the 49ers quarterback situation. Brock's probably going to start. What's he going to look like? Who knows? So obviously I'll be hoping that they win. I think that they probably win 11 games. That might be a little optimistic. I think what was the weren't they at like 10.5 the over under or something like that the last I saw, but
I think
I would
so,
say
yeah.
I would say probably around 11, depending on health. But with Bosa, man, I think he's the type that can show up. He can fly to Pittsburgh without any practice, go on the field, and still harass the quarterback. The only thing I'm concerned about him is that there's just a history of players who hold out and then they come up with these hamstring pulls, soft tissue. That's my concern with him. But I don't know. I think it's going to happen before week 1. I'd love to see it happen tomorrow, but I didn't think it would take this long.
I didn't think so either. I think before before preseason is out, I think he'll sign. Go ahead, Maddie.
Do you see any similarities between this holdout and the Fred Dean holdout in '84? That one lasted a long time. Like, I think it lasted 12 weeks or something like that.
Was it that long?
Yeah,
wow.
He was out most of the year.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Man, I did not remember
and it was
that.
it's a very similar ball of wax when you go back and Fred will be in at some point. And it was like all summer, like there was and then all of a sudden it was week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 12. Oh, hey, Fred Dean's in this week finally. Like, I don't want it to turn into that, because you're going to be looking at 10-7 if that's the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, that team went 18-1 and won the Super Bowl. This team is not going 18-1 without Nick Bosa.
Right.
Well, you can't go 18-1 anymore, but it has to be 19-1. But that team had a lot of depth, and had a really good defense to go with a really good offense. This 49ers team, I just don't think that they're capable of winning, going on a win streak like they did last year without Bosa. He's their best player, and they need him to be there, to be healthy. Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened in 2020 when he went down. Of course, everybody went down.
I know, right? Half the team went down in 2020.
Yeah.
That's 2020 for you.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, we will we'll let you go with that. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing.
My pleasure. I appreciate
it. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have you on down the road, especially when Roger gets in.
Yeah, let's hope we can celebrate that.
Let's get him and Patrick Willison in the same go around, and then we can have a real actual party.
We have a party.
Yeah,
yes,
that would be great. I think Willis is going to be in sooner rather than later, but yeah, that would be fun.
That'd be great. Awesome. They could put us in the preseason Hall of Fame game. Great, good stuff.
Yeah,
thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, have a good one.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Take care. All right, Mark Adams.
Right, very cool.
Cool. Good stuff. I like the fact that he's that they're all doing that, and
heck yeah.
I really hope Roger Craig gets in. Long overdue for sure.
I hope the committee just listens and like really sits down and evaluates this, because it's a shame that he's not in. It really is. We just talk about what he's produced on the field. He should have been in instantly.
The template and blueprint that he set that literally saved the season last year, right? Think about it. They went to that blueprint. They're like, let's go get the dual threat back and make this offense click. And now all of a sudden, whoever you put in there at quarterback has two of the greatest safety valves in history, with a tight end and a running back that can leak out of the backfield. Oh, and a really good H-back, right? That you can utilize in whatever jackknife position possible that you can possibly do. right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got so many options and weapons. I haven't even discussed the wide receivers because we already know about them. So there's so many things happening there and so many options and good things. So it blows me away that they can't look at that and say, wow, Roger Craig did that first. That seems pretty important. Marshall Faulk was a no-brainer, right? When he mentioned guys, earlier like Earl Campbell and guys like that, those guys are no problem Hall of Famers, no nothing Hall of Famers.
Yep.
And then when you add in the total yardage between the two, and like he's that far ahead, and he's not getting past the round that he needs to get to every year, it is absolutely mind-numbing to me. It's yet another one of these East Coast bias things. If he had played for the Giants, or he'd played for the Cowboys, or he'd played for the friggin' Packers or the Steelers, any one of those teams, he'd already be in. He'd probably have a statue somewhere in a town. He may somewhere, but it would probably be outside the stadium. It'd be great. But for some reason with the 49ers, they can't get him into Canton. Blows me away. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy that he's not in. But hopefully that'll change. Yep. So guys, moving on, your thoughts on the preseason game against the Raiders. Ty.
Preseason game. It was, was what it was. I know everybody's freaking out, but there's no need to freak out. It's preseason game. All right, let's break it down. You can tell there were jitters. You can tell those guys were young, and that youth and inexperience showed, right? For a lot of these guys, I know it's our backups versus their backups, but you got to think on our team, our backups are different from other teams because we're not full of veteran backups. All of our backups are rookies and second-year players or rotation guys who don't get on the field much. For a lot of these guys, it was only their fourth time stepping on an NFL field. And you could tell the jitters were there to start the game, right? The miscommunication issues, execution issues. It was all over the place. So the first quarter was just a complete wash. Second quarter, though, you can tell that they settled down and they started to produce. They started to do some things. Okay, they got the nerves out the way. Then they started relaxing and just playing ball. And that was on both sides of the ball. So if you just ignore the first quarter and look from the second quarter on, you're like, okay, all right, we see some things. We see some flashes. These backups can hopefully play, right? And the thing about it is they're not all going to be playing on the field at one time, right? None of these guys are replacing the Trent Williamses and the George Kittles and the Debos, right? They're not replacing them. They'll come in at a spot here to give them a blow, then they're right back off the field. Or a spot there, give this person a blow, right back off the field. So it was fine. The other thing I took away from this, the Raiders were playing this game like it was a regular season game. They game plan things. They had the ends like spying on Trey Lance. They were blitzing. They were moving their fronts around. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Josh McDaniel must have really taken that loss in week 17, 16 last season personal. Because him and his coaching staff was dialing stuff up. So it was a totally different dynamic from the way the two teams even approached the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like while we were running vanilla stuff, they were out there doing exotic stuff. So all this, overblown reaction to this, people need to calm down, just take it easy and be happy that see the guys on the field, take away the positives, and let's just move on.
Yeah, Maddie.
Trey Lance hadn't played a down of competitive professional football since September of last year.
It's almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all are expecting him, and y'all know who you are, okay?
Yeah.
Y'all, that's not any of us here. are expecting him to come out and be prime Steve Young with
They wanted
second
him to
and
be
third
Patrick
stringers,
Mahomes.
right? Against a team that's just dialing up the defense and yeah, okay. And yeah, you know what? The game did look a little fast for him a little bit because I think a lot of it at that point was like, whoa, they're really they're taking this game seriously, man.
They were.
I think
They
there was
were.
I know I said that.
I think there was a really big surprise factor for the 49ers in the first quarter. They're like, the Raiders are really they're checking in for this thing, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're going to see that in preseason, whatever it is, McDaniels, I'm sure, pissed in their vinegar quite a bit. He's got some young guys there, and some of them know that they're auditioning for jobs with other teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
But depending on their effort and depending on the stuff that they put on tape, or practice squad jobs or anything like that. So if he gets them to buy in and do all that stuff, look, he looked a lot better, in the second quarter, and things kind of started to get a little pressure there. I really honestly would have loved to see him play the third and fourth quarter, frankly, even with the other guys out there, because I would have liked to see him with a step down defense, and see how that went. Because frankly, that's the dude I want taking every snap the rest of the way. I've seen Sam Darnold. I have seen this. I've seen this show. I've seen Brandon Allen play. Give me Trey Lance. Give me all the Trey Lance snaps. Here, wall to wall, bell to bell. What do we have? What do we have? What is he? Get him some reps. Get him the experience now, okay? If you're not going to play Brock Purdy at all, which is fine, 100%. I don't think he's healthy enough yet to do that anyways. We need maybe a quarter of Sam Darnold. If you're going to have to get him into a game later on in the season, you're going to get him schemed up and ready and in to go.
Right.
Lance is the one that needs the reps. I want him to get the reps moving forward. This should be Trey Lance season right now. What do we got? Right? That's not there to create a quarterback controversy. That's just to get him the snaps that the dude friggin' needs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have on that. Thank you for attending my TED Talk on that. Defensively,
go
ahead.
Real quick, I want to say I agree with you on the snap thing. I would have liked to see him get just another series or two in the third quarter, because you could tell in the second quarter he got a little lathered up. They started to move the ball. Okay, let's see if he settles down at halftime, and let's see how he comes out just to start the third quarter. So I would have liked to have seen that too.
Exactly what it did in the Houston game of the regular season in 2020 that everybody friggin' forgets about.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, everybody, we don't, because we talk about it, we reference it. Nobody else does. That was kind of an important game, and he showed up for it late in the season. That's got to make you feel good about Trey Lance, but everybody forgets about that. So hopefully he looks good this week against Denver. Really liked what I saw from TD Price, by the way. That's his new name now. They don't call him by his full name. It's TD Price. That's what they call him now. So good on him for jumping into that marketing opportunity, and I hope that really works out for him. Ronnie Bell outside of the drop, which Jerry Rice dropped quite a few balls in 1985. Things seem to work out for him. Okay, so let's just relax and calm down just a bit. He dropped one in a preseason game, probably easy to do, right?
Remember, it's his first time. That was his first time stepping on an NFL
first time
field.
on the field, man. And he's doing special teams and all sorts of other stuff. He's just not doing one thing. Cleveland Farrell at times out there showed some flashes of things that he could be able to do. He's going to be a hell of a lot more effective with Nick Bosa on the field, though. Don't let me drop that out there as some sort of we'll be fine without Nick Bosa because that's not the case at all. But he's going to be a lot more explosive in that scenario. And of course, Jameson, that's some of the best. That's really some of the best special teams work I've seen back there in a long time. That was Derek Harmony.
Long time.
Derek Harmony, and that's Derek Harmon. It's E because it's the adjective. I thought Derek Harmon was a pretty good special teams guy. He reminds me a lot of him with the way that he does those things. And of course, Harmon was kind of the second, was the backup running back behind Craig in '86 too. So you could see some vibes there. And if he can do the nickelback thing and do special teams, God, guys, that's invaluable. It's so invaluable.
He's got a place on the team.
Yep. And Moody, don't worry about him at all. Thank you. He's a rookie kicker. He says 58 yards. Who cares? Figure it out. It'll be fine. Be okay. He's going to be all right.
So do you think there's a competition there between Moody and Gonzalez?
No.
No,
I still don't.
They're not going to cut a third-round pick. Like they can't cut him and give him to the practice squad. Like there's just no, and they're not going to keep 2 kickers. If they keep 2 kickers, like I will. No way. There's no way. I cannot imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. And like I said, his first time stepping on an NFL field. Yeah. Like it's different, right? On the road, it's different. You got to get your nerves down. You got to get settled to it. You saw he missed the first one. So on the second one, he came out and like tried to aim it, guide it instead of just swinging through it. It came up short. Fine. I'm interested to see. We saw him practice yesterday and today. He's kicking everything. The one he missed was like 61 yards.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Let's see how he bounces back at home this week because I'm sure he'll get his opportunities. Let's see what he does. And he himself said it after the game. He's like, I'm not worried about it. He knows what he did wrong. He's not worried about it. Okay, let's see him bounce back.
Brian says, I heard it today. They're keeping 2 kickers, 5 quarterbacks.
It sounds about right.
Who do you think is going to be the Aziz Al-Shair of the team?
That's a good question. That's a darn good question. We saw so many like linebackers flash on Sunday, right? Like at one moment where Curry Ball was out there making tackles. We mentioned what's the rookie's name?
D. Winters.
D. Winters was out there, and the other one, Jalen Graham was out there flashing. I mean, these young guys are out there balling, right? And we talking about the 4th time stepping on the field and first time stepping on the field, but they were out there flashing. So, that's I can't call that one. That's rough. That is too rough. Who knows?
Yeah, and we still have Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles.
Fowles was out there making some plays, you know?
Yeah.
I think he's the guy that you're going to have just based on the way the unofficial depth chart is set up currently.
Mm-hmm.
But, he also plays special teams.
That's right.
So, and he's a core special teamer. So if something happens to him, maybe he gets hurt on special teams. Any one of those guys, Winters or Graham, I think will probably end up sliding into that spot. Probably Winters more likely than not. So I don't worry about them finding late round linebackers. Right. I don't worry about them finding late round safeties.
That's what they do.
No, that's what they do.
Yeah, I'd like to add that unofficial depth chart is also put out by the PR team.
So I said it's unofficial. Doesn't
So
matter
we
what's put
shouldn't-
out by. It's unofficial.
Literally
Well-
says it.
Right, but you
Unofficial PR depth chart,
you'd be
right? We could even call it that.
I took another left turn on Twitter
Oh,
the past couple days, and you'd be surprised. It's crazy.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Mhm.
After the thing,
That's true.
I woke up all day.
Not shocked anymore.
I
That's
am.
true.
I'll tell you right now. I woke up. I thought all Sunday morning. I'm like, I'd really love Trey Lance to just throw 3 touchdowns in the first half. Like I just, I just want to see that piece. You know what I mean? I want to see that piece on my timeline. I want to see that piece. I feel like honestly would turn things around in the world a little bit too if Trey Lance, chance to switch that car around. But no, it was exactly not what we were looking for, right? It was, some highs and lows. It was kind of just the same stuff that we've seen, just in a different format. And you're like, all right, it's going to be another week of it. So whoever wanted to see whatever they wanted to see was going to be able to say whatever they wanted to say about whatever they saw, right? There was no unequivocal thing there.
Exactly.
You can translate. It's like 9th grade English, right? They can translate the Shakespeare for you however you'd like to translate it at the end of the day, right? And say it alludes to this or it alludes to that or whatever. That's the point of this stuff. In that case, like that's what it does. So it's gross.
What do you guys make of Brock Purdy's interceptions in practice?
Was he at OTAs? No. That's what I make of it. This is his OTAs.
This is OTAs, yeah. He's getting acclimated. I mean, some of them I don't mind. He's trying to do things, force things in. Yeah, guys are jumping it. I got it. There's some where I hear that he's just made a poor decision, and I'm like, okay, this is the time to learn from that, because once again, he is a young quarterback still developing. Bad decisions are going to come. They're going to happen. So, okay, he made a bad decision. Hopefully he learns from it. On the next few plays, he bounced back, made some completions. Okay, that's what we want to see. That's why we liked Brock Purdy. When we saw him last season, he would make a bad play, miss a guy, overthrow a guy, throw a bad pass, whatever. He would come right back and have a completion. That's what we like. Let's keep that same energy. That's what we want to see. Same for Trey. When we had a bad first quarter, all right, how does he come out the second quarter? Oh, he's playing better. Mm-hmm. He's getting better as the game goes along. Okay, this is a positive. Let's keep that going. So I'm not worried about it. If he gets out there on Sundays, though, and starts stinking it up, okay, I'm going to start worrying about it. But for right now, I got no issues. Let him learn. Let him get back up to strength. Let him get his timing and everything back. This is the time to do that. We got how many weeks left? 3 weeks, 4 weeks until week 1?
Yes, I believe so.
Let's let him keep practicing and doing his thing.
26 days, right?
Yeah.
I just tried to do the math in my head, which was terrible.
Hold on.
That was long,
Wait.
I
was like, doing that new math?
23.
Plus the 31. 23 days? Jordan
23 days.
What is it, 9-10 for the game?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's why. All right, so I
there
count around. Okay, there you go. Jordan days, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle even said today that they were, they're trying to do some things, and he's like the throws that he's making, he's trying to learn from them, and and stuff like that. I mean, he's also, because people had said like, oh, he's getting sacked a lot in practice, and the both of them, like Brock and Trey, and
D-line's dominating like normal.
Right, like they're
wow. You mean the potential number one defense in the league is playing well in practice? Holy crap! We should call the National Guard and get help.
Yeah,
right. So and he pretty much said that he wants them to go through with the rep. So it's
that's what he does. He tells them to do that.
Right. Or and he also could, like, I think Al said this last week, that like Kyle could just be saying, hey, you know what, throw it here. I don't care if he's open or not. I want to see it. And people just need to understand that it's practice. You work on things. It doesn't define what you're going to do in the regular season. Right. Same thing with preseason. I mean, clearly we saw that on Sunday that, I found myself saying like, who game plans for preseason? But the Raiders did.
they
hell yeah, they did.
That was like a playoff game for them.
Yeah.
They were serious. I saw them blitz on the third play, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, blitzing on 3rd and 6. What is this? Yeah.
Look, that's the experience Trey Lance needs, though. That's the experience all
Very
these guys
true.
need. Nick
Very
Sakel,
true.
Whatever. Thank you. Thanks, Josh. We should send McDaniel's charity like a gift card or something. Like, thank you so much for game planning and making this a little harder. Like, this is when I want him to learn this stuff, right? I don't need him I don't want him doing this on a Monday night against the Vikings. Okay, I almost said that the Vikings defense was going to be good for a second. Sorry. I cracked myself up. Like, I just started laughing. Like, I couldn't even take myself seriously for a second. But, like, let's say they're playing another team with a competent defense, right, in a big game. Like, he's going to be able to draw from that experience. So, just not the Vikings in this case. So,
Yeah, just not the Vikings. What's wrong with you?
I just needed to take a little shot there. Just a little shot.
But I'm in agreement with you, Matt. This is where you want them to learn. And like I went back and I watched the game, and I was just noticing differences between the first quarter and the second quarter. That's why I said, you could see them calm down and relax and start to do things. And the communication was better. Like there was a play in the first quarter where they were shifting the line to the right, and Jason Poe and Jalen Moore had a clear miscommunication because Poe just let his guy go, and he was right in Trey Lance's face immediately. And they did the same thing in the second quarter, but that time Moore slid over and picked up that guy and, kept him out of Trey's face. So it was like, okay, they made that mistake. They adjusted, they learned, and they got it together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to see. Some growth, some positivity. They're learning on the fly. This is their time to learn on the fly. Like I keep saying, is their fourth game, right? Fourth time being on the field. A lot of them. This is what you want to see. And people are trashing the O-line, and rightfully so. They played bad, but remember, in the O-line, they need cohesiveness, right? They need to play together to gel. It's the same reason why everyone was freaking out about our starting offensive line last season, because the guys in the middle hadn't been there. We didn't know how they would play with each other. Pause. But
Oxford comma.
Exactly. But, translates that to these guys. They've never played together as a unit. So, of course, you're going to have breakdowns and miscommunication and things like that. It takes them a while to get it together. And we saw that on Sunday. So for everybody to think we were just going to come out and put up, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns in the first quarter and keep it moving, that's a big no-no. That wasn't happening.
I agree, Rick. I think we're gonna be more than okay in the regular season.
Yeah. You think Trent Williams and Aaron Banks are going to have communication issues and not knowing, where each other are and whom to pick up?
I feel like Jake Brendel's going to have some things called out. I think he's going to see some things, know some stuff.
Yeah.
I think he'll be
fine.
I think
so.
I think he'll be.
I'd have to agree.
I think George Kittle was going to catch a pass and immediately fumble it. I don't think so.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
I don't think so.
He should be back next week, George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
And Elijah Mitchell is close to coming back.
Yep.
Moving on.
Dr. University.
Yes. Right. Moving on to the Broncos. Do you guys think we see any starters?
No. Last year, I'm sorry, Matt. Last year, the dress rehearsal was game 3.
Right.
Yeah. We'll keep that same, that same energy this season.
I know Kyle said he wasn't sure because he was asked that today. He was also asked if Brock Purdy was going to see some action, but I doubt it.
I'm guessing that he sees action in the 3rd preseason game, like the very first series, maybe 2 series. I think that's going to be the dress rehearsal. I think that's going to be a new thing around the league. I mean, game 3 was always during the preseason.
Right.
Like for the last few years, like game 3 was the primary, and like game 4 was like the roster bubble guys, like having it out gladiator style,
roster bubble showcase.
Yeah, exactly. The Bam Childress Bowl, if you will.
Yep.
So like the same deal. That stuff's going to happen, right? And I think that's now it even works better because that's your last thing that you put on paper before you go back into the lab before, reemerging for the regular season in Pittsburgh. So I still think that week 1 game is going to be so low scoring. I think it's going to be like 16-13, 17-14. I think it's going to be a real defensive battle because you've got 2 really young quarterbacks coming into a second season. They're good. They're going to take their shots, but I think both teams really want to rely on their defense. They want to rely on their running game. So I think you have big days for McCaffrey. I think you have a big day for either Najee Harris or Jalen Warren.
Najee Harris, yep.
Don't overlook Jalen Warren. For some reason, they like sliding him into that offense. And if the offense starts clicking, they have no problem going with a hot hand in that.
Oh yeah.
In that system now, which
I
is really
still
wild.
think that we have the and we'll obviously talk about the Steelers matchup, but I still think that we have the upper hand with the running game, and
100%.
And I still think that the Steelers are kind of one-dimensional. In fact, I know they have Najee Harris and stuff like that, but as far as the run game, I don't see it as effective.
What if Nick Bosa doesn't play?
Oh God, he better play.
So that's the other thing I'm looking at here too. Like, what if he gets into camp late and they're like, "Listen, we're not going to have you play week 1. You'll play week 2 or week 3 or whatever. We'll save you for the Giants game or something." What if this continues? Because this is the thing that's not going anywhere. And I think what's really starting to get aggravating about this, and not to switch this around from what we were originally talking about,
No, go ahead.
which was this weekend's game, but it's just kind of one of those deals where, like, where are the updates? Why is the only update coming from a website in India? Like that's kind of like my like, and it runs the site, but there's nothing else out there. And typically with every other thing, it's covered, right? I get an update on Josh Jacobs and Leonard Fournette. I swear to God, every day, twice a day. Right? Like, it's unbelievable. One of them goes to the grocery store and they're like, "Oh, looks like he was getting a text from a teal covered text message bubble. Could be the Jaguars. Stay tuned." Right? Like, just weird, stupid things like that. But you hear absolutely nothing about this Nick Bosa thing. And when they talk about, they're like, "Oh, it'll get done. It'll get done." Well, when is this? At what point do you constitute this as some sort of like, some sort of urgency on this, right? Like, there's a Super Bowl window here and we never know when that closes. Like, we would like to think we've got years and years and years in the Super Bowl window. This could be the last year of it, right? You never know. You never know. It's the National Football League. There's a reason they say it's not for long, because your window doesn't stay open for long. Yep. That's how that works. So let's go. Okay, like, what is it? Is it a money saving thing? Is it about putting something, like, what is going on? Is it because the guy that's our cap genius is now like the president of the soccer club? Like, I want to know what is happening with this. This is huge. This is the best defensive player in the National Football League. The guy that's going to make that defensive line, which they just invested major money into to make sure that is a foundational strength of this team that they saw needed improvement, and now all of a sudden we can't get the one guy, the captain of the ship in. Like, I don't get it, man. Like, it's August 16th. This should have been done a long time ago. Like, what are we doing? What's going on here?
Yeah, I thought it would have been done before training camp. They knew all along that this was going to happen, and so I don't understand I'm surprised we haven't heard some ridiculous story from Mike Silver.
We've seen nothing from Silver, nothing. Schefter, Rappaport,
absolutely nothing.
The random Twitter accounts that are people still semi do whatever with, and like even like Pelissero or Jeremy Fowler, or any of those guys, like, you're waiting for something. And you don't really hear much on the 49ers cast. I'm going to be real interested tomorrow. I think Thursday is when the radio, the NFL radio, comes to town, and you wonder if they'll drop any nuggets in that and be like, "Hey, something going to happen at some point." That happens Thursday.
It is tomorrow. Yep.
So if you're watching this later, like, it's going to happen on the 17th. So maybe at that point, Bosa will be signed. But I'd like to get this done, because we're all sitting here focused on the quarterback, but, like, you kind of need that potential defensive player of the year on the other line that's in his, 5th-year contract year to be happy. Plus, whatever he signs, it's going to open up another whole world of cap space. What if they can make some move before the trade deadline that they need to make? They need to shore up that offensive line, or they need to shore up the defensive line, or they need to do something else, like, just like they did last year for Christian McCaffrey, and it really changed the course of the season. Like, there's a lot of factors in the Bosa thing, and, like, it's a hanging weight right now. Like, really want to see that get resolved really, really quickly.
Right. All right. Anything else, guys?
And they'll get the Bosa thing handled. I ain't worried about it. John Lynch will have him in there week 1. That's all that matters. Week 1. I don't care about preseason game number 2.
I worry about that because I remember those ones are like, oh, he held out all of camp, and then week 1 he, something happens, right? Or week 2 something happens. And usually it's never related, but, like, you're like, well, is it related because he missed this, he missed that? Like, but then you've got those stories like Emmitt Smith in '93 missing the first 2 games and rolling through. So
Yep.
You know, and that made the difference. They were 0-2 without him that year. You know, there was a big drop off from Sherman Williams or Derek. I think it was Derek Lassick at the time. There's a big drop off from Emmitt Smith to Derek Lassick, and it showed. I don't know what the drop off would be from Nick Bosa to Drake Jackson, but I don't think it's real fair to Drake Jackson to find out.
Well, it's not Drake; it's the other guy.
Oh yeah, or whoever they're going to do.
Or
yeah,
starts. Yeah.
Poor Cleveland. Hey, you know, remember how we told you you're going to be a complimentary piece? Well, guess what? Yeah.
I know, right? Now you're the guy. Get out there.
Now you're the guy. Good luck.
Get us 18 sacks.
Yeah, we definitely need Nick Bosa for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's nothing else, let's go to that hurry up offense and the 2-minute warning.
Hold on. And we're off.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Hope Bryant and Tony have a good time at the game this weekend. Have a good time. Probably do another giveaway for next weekend for next Wednesday for next weekend's game, by the way. So
cool.
Stay on the lookout for that. And other than that, everybody enjoy the game this weekend, no matter what it is, because it's still football and it gives us something to talk about for another week, and people can overreact however they want to either way.
It's great.
Yeah, Nick Bosa, please sign your contract and let's join the team. Bryant, Tony, have fun at the game. I'm sure you guys will have a blast. Really good seats. Next week we have, speaking of Bryant and Tony, next week we have Bryant, Tony, and Terradome on for a special show. But anyway, go Niners, like and subscribe. Thanks to Marc Adams again for coming on. Very insightful stuff. And thanks to everybody in the chat for tuning in.
Yep. Shout out to Marc. He's doing an awesome thing for an awesome individual. Aside from the player, the stories I hear about Roger Craig, he's just a great guy, a good human being, good to talk to, and he's well deserving of being in the Hall of Fame for his play. And right now, there's a lot of negativity out there regarding our young players, not just the quarterback, a lot of our young players. So faithful, it's time for us to come together and support these guys because they're not getting it from the outside. So let's do it from within and support our team. Go Niners.
Yes, that is such a good point because this is what happens when we're not supportive, right? We're not uniting. Like Roger Craig can't get into the Hall of Fame. We seem to be able to get behind this, right? Like
right.
I'm just tired of that Hall of Fame being filled up with the Jets, Giants, Steelers, and Packers of the world. Because it seems like, and Cowboys, of course, can't forget them. If you played on the Cowboys in the 70s, you're probably in the Hall of Fame.
You're already in.
Yeah, you're already in. Congratulations. Oh, by the way, Jameson's doing pretty good. Hopefully he comes home on Friday. So that would be the update on that, Bryant. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. All right, guys. See you next week. Go Niners.
Bang, bang.
Go Niners. See you.
And, of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.